There are secrets so deep that they should never be revealed, manuscripts so ancient that they defy time, and rituals so dangerous that they should never be performed. But what if I told you that one of these secrets was found buried beneath the ruins of Solomon's Temple, a mysterious book, sealed by the Vatican itself, containing instructions for a forbidden ritual? Those who tried to decipher it were never the same again. Some disappeared, others went insane, and some say that something is still lurking, waiting to be summoned once more. What did this book contain? What really happened to the scholars who dared to open its pages? And the most terrifying question of all, has it been used before? Today, you will uncover the story the Vatican never wanted to come to light. Before we begin, don't forget to leave a like so more people can learn about this story, and subscribe to the channel, because here, we talk about the mysteries that few dare to reveal. And at the end, tell me in the comments, do you believe this book is still hidden, or has it already fallen into the wrong hands? Now, let's dive into this forbidden enigma. The unexpected discovery in the ruins of Solomon's Temple. It was supposed to be just another day of archaeological excavations in Jerusalem. The research team was searching for traces of the ancient structure of Solomon's Temple, one of the most sacred sites in history, when something unexpected emerged. Beneath layers of earth and millennia-old debris, an object that had resisted the passage of time was found. At first, they thought it was just another common artifact, but a closer look was enough to reveal that it was unlike anything else. The book was intact. No signs of deterioration, even after centuries, or perhaps millennia, buried. Its leather cover, firm and with an unusual texture, reflected a golden sheen under the sunlight. The archaeologists, accustomed to handling dusty and fragile ancient manuscripts, were baffled by its preservation. But the most unsettling part was yet to come. When they attempted to identify the material of the cover, they realized it resembled nothing they had ever seen. It looked like leather but was denser, almost metallic to the touch. The embossed symbols carved into it did not belong to any known language, and even the most experienced specialists failed to translate them at first glance. There were no inscriptions indicating an author, time period, or origin. What intrigued the researchers the most was the complete absence of references to the book in any other archaeological findings from the region. How could something so well preserved remain hidden for so long, without any record of its existence? The discovery was meant to be announced to the world, but before they had the chance to study it thoroughly, someone was notified. And the response came faster than anyone could have imagined. The forbidden book and the Vatican's reaction. News of the discovery quickly spread through academic circles. However, before any in-depth study could be conducted, a message came from above. Upon learning of the find, the Vatican acted swiftly and discreetly. Ecclesiastical authorities sent representatives to the team of archaeologists without prior notice, and confiscated the book without offering any explanations. What surprised the researchers the most was not just the speed of the response, but the manner in which everything was handled. There were no negotiations, no arguments. The book was taken from the excavation site and transported to an unknown destination. Any attempt to question the decision was met with a stern look and a single response: "This cannot be studied by just anyone." From that moment on, the book officially never existed. Unofficially, it was taken to the Vatican secret archives, one of the most restricted places in the world, where only a select group of theologians, linguists, and cryptographers had access. Under strict surveillance, they began their analysis. Every symbol, every mark, every detail of the manuscript was meticulously examined. The Vatican wanted answers, yet at the same time, it seemed to fear what it might uncover. As the months passed, the scholars realized that the book's content was not merely a historical or religious record. It did not contain known prophecies nor traditional sacred texts. There was something more, A hidden pattern emerged within the symbols, as if they were encoded in a way humanity had yet to comprehend. Some passages referenced rituals, meticulously detailed instructions that seemed to describe precise procedures. But procedures for what? None of the excerpts clarified whether they were prayers, summons, or something far more dangerous. Tension within the Vatican grew with each new discovery. The more they studied, the more they understood that this book should never fall into the wrong hands. Yet the question no one dared to ask aloud lingered. Why was this book buried? What does it truly contain? That was when one of the researchers reached the most unsettling conclusion of all. The symbols that appeared repeatedly throughout the pages were not merely decorative. They formed an exact pattern, a set of instructions for something that should never be performed. And at that moment, the Vatican faced a chilling dilemma: proceed further or stop before it was too late. The hidden secrets and the risky ritual. The Vatican hesitated. The discoveries made so far were already disturbing, but what lay ahead could change everything known about the spiritual world. The book's enigmatic inscriptions pointed to something beyond simple religious or historical texts. Among the unknown words, there were precise sequences of symbols and formulas that seemed to follow a rigid structure, as if they were coded instructions. The scholars began drawing parallels with ancient records of forgotten rituals. But there was one detail that made everything even more unsettling. Nothing like it existed in any known document. Not in the Bible, the Apocrypha, Gnostic manuscripts, or esoteric records. The book was unique. Then came the most shocking discovery. By cross-referencing the symbols with advanced mathematical formulas, they realized that the book appeared to contain a sequence of actions that, if followed correctly, would activate something. Not just a simple spiritual invocation, but an event with unpredictable consequences. It was a ritual, but not an ordinary one. The instructions were meticulous. The symbols had to be drawn perfectly on the ground. The words had to be chanted in a specific sequence, in a language that no one recognized. Every mistake seemed to have a consequence. But the question no one could answer was, what would happen if everything was done correctly? The debate within the Vatican was intense. Some believed that this knowledge should be destroyed, locked away forever in the underground vaults of the secret archives. Others, driven by curiosity and the promise of answers about the spiritual world, argued that the ritual should be tested. After all, if this book existed, if it had been discovered at that precise moment, perhaps there was a reason. The final decision was made in absolute secrecy. A subterranean chamber, protected by layers of security, was chosen for the experiment. Only a small group of scholars, clergy, and scientists would be allowed to be present. No one else was to know. The day of the ritual, the chamber was prepared with precision. The symbols were drawn onto the stone floor, replicated exactly as instructed in the book. Candles were lit, not for aesthetic effect, but because the electricity had been cut off. The ritual required a completely isolated environment, free from any external interference. Then, the chanting began. The scholars recited the words with caution, following the phonetics recorded in the manuscript. None of the words made sense. None resembled any known language. But as their voices echoed through the chamber, something began to change. The air grew heavier. The temperature fluctuated. The symbols on the floor began to glow, as if activated by an unseen force. The participants exchanged uneasy glances, but no one dared to stop. The book did not specify what was supposed to happen next. It only stated that if the ritual was performed correctly, something would respond. Then, the light in the chamber vanished completely. A suffocating silence filled the space. The air crackled with an almost electrical charge. And then, something answered. The entity and the ominous warning. The air in the underground chamber seemed to vibrate. An invisible pressure weighed on the shoulders of everyone present, as if the very fabric of space was folding around them. The glowing symbols on the floor flickered between golden and silver hues, pulsating like a living heartbeat. Then, at the center of the circle, it appeared. At first, it was nothing more than a shapeless silhouette, like a shadow cut against an inexistent background. But as the flickering light returned in erratic pulses, its form began to take shape. It was not an angel. It was not a demon. The entity's presence was overwhelming. Its body was wrapped in a long, immaculate gray mantle, seamless and untouched by time. Its skin, if it could even be called that, did not reflect light in a normal way, as if it was made of something beyond common matter. Its face had no defined features, no mouth, no nose, no ears, only eyes. Eyes that shone like distant stars, deep and unfathomable, filled with something no human could comprehend. For a moment, no one dared to move. The entity, in turn, remained motionless as well, as if it were absorbing the presence of the scholars. Its gaze, or whatever it was, slowly scanned each person in the room, analyzing them with eerie precision. The silence was absolute, heavy, almost suffocating. Then, one of the theologians, trembling, took a step forward and, with a wavering voice, asked, "Do you understand us?" The entity slowly turned toward him. Its body made no unnecessary movements, as if it were perfectly synchronized with the space itself. There was a hesitation. Then, it moved its head in a subtle gesture. Not a yes, not a no, just a silent acknowledgement that it had understood the question. That was enough to send shivers through those witnessing the event. Another scholar, gathering his courage, asked the question everyone feared. "Are you an angel?" The response came after a pause so long that time itself seemed to stretch. The entity's voice did not emerge as a normal sound. It was as if multiple voices spoke at once, some whispering, others booming like distant thunder. "I am merely a servant, neither good nor evil. I only follow orders." The scholars exchanged uneasy glances. That answer made no sense. Everything they had learned about the spiritual world was based on duality: heaven and hell, light and darkness, angels and demons. But this entity did not fit into any category. Before they could formulate another question, it spoke again. "It was a mistake to summon me." Some felt their hearts race. Others felt an icy chill crawl down their spines. The entity's tone was calm, but there was something in its posture that radiated a sense of warning. "You have opened a door that should not have been opened." Silence returned. One of the clergymen, swallowing hard, tried to press further. "What happens if we perform the ritual again?" The entity averted its gaze. When it finally answered, its voice carried a weight beyond words. "Those who attempt it will not survive." The words were spoken without emotion, not as a threat, but as a statement of an inevitable fact. The tension in the room peaked. What did that mean? Was the danger only in the summoning, or were there greater consequences yet to come? But before they could ask anything else, something shifted in the entity's expression. Its eyes glowed intensely for a brief moment. Then, it murmured something that sent a chill through every soul in the room. "I have been here before." What did that mean? What else had humanity forgotten? And why did this entity seem unsurprised to have been summoned? The room grew colder. It felt as if something essential had been drained from the space. Then, the entity raised one hand and touched its own chest. "My time here is over." Before anyone could react, its body began to glow again, The symbols on the floor faded one by one, as if something was undoing the ritual. In a matter of seconds, it was gone. The group remained motionless. No one dared to speak. What had just happened could not be undone. And the worst part, this did not feel like the end. It felt like the beginning. The disappearance and the inexplicable phenomena. The ritual was over. The entity had vanished. But something in that underground chamber had changed. The scholars remained there, motionless, trying to process what they had just witnessed. The silence was oppressive. The floor still bore the scorched marks where the symbols had been drawn, yet the energy in the room felt different. Something was still there, but no one dared to say it out loud. The days that followed were marked by an uneasy atmosphere within the Vatican. The event was officially documented, but only for the eyes of a select few. Nothing about it was to be revealed to the public. However, the problems were just beginning. The first to show signs of disturbance was one of the linguists tasked with deciphering the manuscript. A rational, deeply skeptical man, devoted to science, he soon began to suffer from severe insomnia, spending entire nights unable to close his eyes. He claimed to sense a presence in his room, even when he was alone. Then came the auditory hallucinations. At first, they were faint whispers, unintelligible, distant, like voices carried by the wind. But as the days passed, the whispers grew clearer. At first, he dismissed them as a result of extreme exhaustion, until he recognized a phrase that kept repeating, "You have opened something that cannot be closed." The phenomena escalate. Within a week, other members of the team began to experience similar occurrences. Manuscripts inside the Vatican Library seemed to move on their own. Electronic equipment turned on and off without explanation. Security cameras detected movement in the shadows, but whenever they reviewed the footage, the files were corrupted. Then came the turning point. A skeptical priest, known for his disdain toward superstition, was assigned to watch over the archive where the book was kept. He accepted the task mockingly, believing that all of this was mere exaggeration. The morning after, he was found at dawn, curled up in a corner of the library, his eyes wide with terror, his skin pale, as if he had seen something impossible to describe. When he finally managed to speak, his voice was shaky, broken. "There's something here with us." The Vatican's final decision. After that night, the Vatican took action. All research on the book was immediately shut down. The manuscript was sealed in a subterranean chamber, locked away with ancient rites known only to a select group of priests. No further studies would be permitted. But then, the worst happened. The disappearance. That very night, one of the lead researchers, someone deeply involved in the study of the book, vanished without a trace. His office was found untouched. No signs of a struggle. No forced entry. Nothing. Except for one thing. On his desk lay a single torn page from the book. It bore a symbol that no one had ever seen before. The unanswered question. An internal Vatican investigation was launched, but silenced. The incident became absolute secrecy. Yet, among the few who still dared to speak in whispers about what happened in that underground chamber, one chilling thought remained. Did the entity truly leave? Or did something of it stay behind? The sealed secret and the truth that cannot be erased. The disappearance of the researcher was the final warning. The Vatican could no longer ignore the events that had unfolded since the ritual was performed. A decision was made with absolute urgency. The book would be locked away forever, under direct orders from high-ranking members of the Church. The manuscript was placed inside a lead-lined box and transported to the deepest levels of the secret archives. It was not just sealed, but protected by ancient rites, prayers in forgotten tongues, and exorcism symbols carved into the very structure of the subterranean chamber where it would be stored. But among those who had participated in the experiment, a question remained. Was it enough? The knowledge contained within the book could not be erased. What had been read, what had been studied, the information absorbed by the scholars. All of it was already in the world. The book could be sealed, but the truth could not be buried so easily. The Vatican's silence and the consequences. In the months that followed, a heavy silence settled over the Vatican. The event was never mentioned again, at least, not officially. But something strange began to happen to those who had been present during the ritual. Some simply vanished, like the researcher whose office was left untouched, except for the torn page from the book. Others were removed from their positions, sent on distant missions, as if the Church wanted to scatter them across the world, preventing them from sharing what they had learned. And then, there were those who began to lose their sanity. The few who dared to speak about what had happened all said the same thing. The ritual was not a summoning. It was an answer. The terrifying implication. If the book contained a summoning spell, it meant that at some point in the past, it had already been used. And that was the most terrifying part. If the entity had been called before, what happened to those who had attempted it? The Vatican sealed the book, but it could not silence the whispers that lingered in the dark corridors of the Church. From time to time, someone would mention the forbidden manuscript, the strange events that followed its discovery, and the fact that no one ever saw the missing researcher again. Then, an even more disturbing detail emerged. In 12th century documents, a near-identical account was found. A mysterious invocation. The appearance of an indescribable entity, the inexplicable disappearance of those involved. The only difference. The medieval version of the story ended abruptly, with no record of what happened next. Did the Church already know? Had the Church known about this ritual for centuries? Was the book truly discovered by accident? Or had it always returned to humanity when it was time for someone to open it again? One thing was certain. If that manuscript were ever found again, there might be no way back. The secret may be hidden, but it is still there. The book was sealed. The Vatican silenced the case. But was that enough? Or had the knowledge already escaped into the world? Into the hands of those who should never have it? The entity warned them. The ritual was not a summoning. It was an answer. What does that truly mean? And worse, has someone, somewhere, already tried to repeat what was done in that underground chamber? Many mysteries remain unsolved, but one thing is certain. There are secrets that should never be uncovered. If this story gave you chills, leave a like, because that helps this video reach more people. Subscribe to the channel so we can continue unraveling the most hidden mysteries of humanity. And now, I want to hear from you. Do you believe this book is still hidden? Or is it already being used again? Tell me in the comments. See you in the next video.